Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to SSTCI's 6th annual Women in the Arts panel, Local Women Explore Creativity, Identity, and Resilience, hosted by Elaine Robnett Moore and featuring Shruthi Mukund, Sharon Lee, Sehar Peerzad, Ali Berg, Karyna Swing, and am I getting everyone? Ali Berg?
Yeah, I think you did.
Bhavna Naik, who we're still waiting for. Hosted by Elaine Robnett Moore. We're so happy to have everyone joining us. It's always a great discussion. It's just really like a chat with friends. So I wanted to tell you about a few things we have coming up. Sehar Peerzad, who is a fashion designer, will be presenting Modesty and Fashion in the 21st Century this Wednesday evening at 7. Later on, I will put a link to register for your own unique Zoom link. We require everyone to register for their own Zoom link so that it keeps our Zoom connections private and safer that way. We don't get Zoom bombed as we did when COVID was starting out. We have some really exciting stuff coming up, including our Around the World Bazaar this coming Friday. It's an in-person event at the Silver Springs Civic Building in the Great Hall. We have 2 performance stages. It's from 5 to 10 p.m. We have Carpe Diem Arts with Lilo Gonzalez doing a children's sing-along in the atrium at 5. At 5:30, we have Positive Vibrations, Caribbean steel drum music. And then at 6:30, we have Orfea Bulgarian Women's Choir. And at 7, we have a big Bollywood, a Bhangra wedding dance event. We are literally expecting hundreds of people for that. And Shruthi, who's on this panel with us, is with Alni Theater, and they are co-partnering with us on the event. So they identified the dancers, the dance instructors. So we're all going to learn how to dance at a Bollywood wedding. So bring your comfortable shoes and prepare to work up a sweat and have a great time. We will also have a women's comedy showcase, as well as Halau Nahona Hawaii. And throughout the evening, hands-on art activities, as well as Bhavna is going to do demos of henna artistry. And then we have food from around the globe. So it will be a great time. It's free. It's our Around the World Bazaar this Friday at the Silver Springs Civic Building. So hope you can join us. And now I'd like to introduce our host. Elaine Robnett Moore is a 5th generation internationally renowned artist whose mediums of choice are beaded jewelry and the written word. Elaine has worked as an international development consultant and a master teacher in Africa, the Caribbean, Malaysia, and the United States, working with bead artists and creative makers. She exhibits internationally and is published. She serves on the board of directors and is past president of the Bead Society. Getting a little noise on here. Sorry, I got it. She is past president of the Bead Society of Greater Washington and served on the board of directors of the Bead Museum in Washington, D.C. She serves currently on the board of directors of the Arts and Humanities Council of Montgomery County. In May of 2013, Elaine was commissioned by the government of Rwanda to write the country's first training manual, Professional Jewelry Making with Beads, the 2nd edition of her book, The Art of Bead Stringing, Artist to Entrepreneur. And we have hosted Elaine on a book talk, as well as on her memoir, which was wonderful. Her bead stringing book was published April 2015 in the United States. Her book, Dancing Out Loud, Thoughts on Navigating the Rhythms of Life, is a labor of love, 16 years in the making. It is composed of equal parts experience, insight, wit, and wisdom. This book is designed to be a guide to those who strive to find the unique and specific rhythms of their life. Her latest book, Dancing Out Loud, the little book of quotes, is a companion you carry with you. Just the quotes with artwork by her grandson, Hugh Vincent. And you can find out more about Elaine's work at ElaineRobnettMoore.com. I'll put that in the chat. Welcome to you, Elaine. So happy to have you hosting our Women in the Arts panel.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. It is a joy to be with you again. And I now have to say nothing at all because you've said it all. So I have to say nothing at all about what I do. And Lisa, I think it's important that we thank you for the work you do that brings us together and allows us the opportunity to share with others the work that we do as artists and who we are as women. And that's important. Thank you so much for that. Today's panel is amazing, and each one brings their own gifts, their own joys and creativity to the table with us. So I'm going to get started, and just a little housekeeping. If each artist will keep their intro to 5 minutes, then we can go back with questions, and we'll have plenty of time for questions from the audience, because I know there's going to be a bazillion questions. I have some myself that I've saved up. I want to start with artist Sharon Lee Minor and ask you to come forward and to give us your input as to a little bit about who you are and what you do and why.
Wow. Good evening. Good evening. First of all, everyone who's here, happy Women's Month. And I hope it has been a wonderful Women's Month. I am so delighted to be a part of this panel. And I also want to celebrate because today is my mother's birthday. And she would have been 95 years old today. So I'm dedicating whatever I say, which I used to do when she was with me physically, whatever I say, I'm going to attribute it to her. As well as I have some photos of my family, the women in my family. I'm a fourth generation Washingtonian, and I am an artist, visual performance, and now I'm techno granny. Now that I've gotten into the vintage age, I'm techno granny, so I'm really doing a lot of my work on film and videotaping, been doing it for a while. So I had planned on showing you a piece of that, but I will give you the link so you can see what I did in dedicating for this evening. And that is, I have a piece that I call Evocation, dedicated to the women who eat fire. So that, I think that's everybody here. So I'm, like I said, fourth generation Washingtonian. I live in Silver Spring, Aspen Hill, and the Arts and Humanities Council has been very kind to me. And I've traveled, my art has been around the world. I traveled primarily to West Africa. And I think that's 5 minutes, isn't it, Elaine?
Oh, you have another minute or so. Go right ahead.
Okay, well, okay. I have, I make jewelry, which I was real excited to be on with you because I do make jewelry, and I'm an artist. That means that I spend my day making art, and I'm just very blessed that I'm able to do that. And also that I'm an ordained minister. So the arts and spirit and physicality of what we do is all important. And I think that's about all for now.
That's excellent. And again, so many questions because in viewing your art, it's absolutely spectacular.
This piece is actually was dedicated to my mother and is in my mother's garden, and it was shown at the Strathmore Mansion a few years ago.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Sharon. Shruthi, you're up next, and this is Shruthi Mukund. I just can't tell you how excited we are to have you with us today. So if you would go forward and give us some information, it would be helpful.
So do you mind repeating your lead question again so I can make sure I answer that while I talk about myself?
I just want you at this point to tell us about you and what you do and the art that you create.
I am a first generation immigrant. I grew up in India. I moved here when I was 21. I have I'm raising two daughters who are American. They're teenagers. I work for Olney Theatre right now. I'm the director of community engagement at Olney Theatre. I'm a professionally trained dancer. I blog for my creative outlet, but right now in my life, I'm more a enabler of the arts than I am an artist, because I'm the production aspect is what is like exciting me at this phase in my life. I do a lot of DIY projects at home, but nothing that I'm presenting as public art as such, but I'm presenting people who are
Exactly.
Making opportunities for people to showcase their art. And that's giving me a lot of joy right now in my life.
That is in itself an art. And so just projecting what others do and enabling them, that is art itself. And you can't get better than that. Tell us a little bit about perhaps a production that's coming up or that you're working on.
So the thing is, as I said, I'm an arts administrator in the DC metro area. And just as Lisa shared in the chat, I also run the Indian Dance Educators Association, which is a nonprofit service organization that supports Indian classical dancers in the DMV. And as a part of that, we create opportunities for them to build professional learning and build on their own skills to be better producers of their dance. And one of the other things we do is a biennial dance festival, and that's coming up on May 13th. The festival's focus is actually showcasing Indian classical music in Indian cinema over the last 75 years since independence of India. And the idea is to kind of overlap worlds of people who are Indian cinema lovers while exposing them to Indian classical dance. And just like every other kind of classical dance or music form across the world right now, there is a big divide with what used to be elitist to how to bring it to the masses. And that is why we decided to focus through the cinema lens. So we open it up and start rebuilding audiences, because for the most part in India, there is also a dwindling audience for the classical dances, but in America, the audiences for Indian classical dances is from the students. And so if the students are performing, then you have parents as the audience members. But then what do then the professionals do? Because when they're performing, you don't always want to include your student population on stage. So this is how we're trying to mitigate that issue and build. And that is my other skill is or my interest is audience development, is understanding who's not in the room and how do we bridge them and bring them into the room and what would be their interest. And so a lot of the events I do at Olney Theatre too is about participatory events for the community where they come in to explore art themselves. Like the thing we're doing with Lisa, the dance class that's on Friday, we just put it out and Lisa says we have over 150 people who want to come and try Indian Bollywood dancing. And it's just exposing people to the arts and try to bring down as many barriers to use, because I'm a big believer that arts and culture is like a really powerful cultural bridge and works as great like soft diplomacy, right? I think the power of that is so much more than anything else, because you'll be like, I love Indian food. But as sometimes as annoying I get when people the minute they look at me that they like Indian food, I understand they're finding the least common denominator to talk to me. That's like how they come and talk to me. And then the next step you build and then actually build a relationship.
Excellent. See, you had a lot more to say than you thought you had to say. That's excellent. And anyone who's ever seen Bollywood dancing in any of the new movies, and so I can understand why you have so many people already lined up for Friday. It's just engaging, electric, and exciting.
Yeah, and it's, again, you don't need any skills. You should just be able to listen and follow along.
Oh, that's great, because that means I can show up now.
Yes, you must. You must.
No skills at all. That's definitely me. And it's always so interesting because I come from a grandmother who had a dancing school, and it was certainly not Indian dancing, but it creates a true love for dancing, no matter what the cultural background is. It's just exciting to watch all the different options of dancing. Henna Artist Bhavna Naik, are you there?
Bhavna Naik, I don't think she's here yet.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay, so we will move right along. Sehar, I know you're there. And for the rest of the audience, you should know that this is a Sehar original that I'm wearing. I love her clothing. And this is an ad. I expect to be reimbursed for this later, Sehar.
Put on my tab. Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. And it's always fun meeting new people and joining in with people that some folks that I've already been on before with. Elaine and I go way back, and I'm a Washingtonian, but currently living in Baltimore. I was in PG County for about 20 years. And I am a fiber artist. Now as a clothing designer, aside from manipulating the fabric itself, I also print on the fabric using the ancient art of block printing. And to that end, I can create my own fabric, my own prints. I cut first and then print. And that makes it so my printing follows the design of the fabric rather than vice versa. Although as a fabric lover and hoarder of fabric, sometimes the fabric leads me. So I love all kinds of fabrics. I learned to block print on one of my trips to Pakistan. My husband is from there, so I ended up going, back and forth a lot. And sometimes people come and they get married and they don't get to go back and forth, but we kind of make it a point to go back and forth because there's so much there that I love, as well as here and vice versa, for my husband. So, and also to help my daughter continue to be indoctrinated on both sides. So as being in Baltimore has been very interesting, in some ways more fruitful than Washington. And it's a lot of people don't realize how much artistically goes on in Maryland. I think there are about 200,000 artists in Maryland, not just Baltimore, but all over Maryland. So when I read about that recently, I found that really interesting. I recently participated in the American Craft Council show, and that was my first time participating, and it was absolutely amazing to be in a position to have your work shown to people who really appreciate. You know, a lot of times you can do all kinds of smaller fairs and festivals and people appreciate, but they can't necessarily afford. And, you know, you try not to price things, you know, too far out of the market. So one creates a bit, you know, a few low end things and some high end things so that everybody can maybe take part. So my journey from Washington to Baltimore was really led by a combination of family and school. My daughter went to Baltimore School for the Arts, and so we ended up spending more time than we ever expected to spend in Baltimore, finding out about what's going on in Baltimore itself. A lot of fairs and festivals going on here. A lot of artists, a lot of maker space that they're building, especially for makers. So we've been able to, you know, partake of some of that. I work though mostly out of my home studio, as most artists have to do now with the pandemic kind of curbing the income for so many artists. And I enjoy working in that capacity. And my interest in modest fashion, I guess, came early. It's although I'm a Muslim, it's not because of that. It's more because I can see a change in how women present themselves, and for some reason people don't see that the response that you get comes from, you know, what you're wearing, what you're saying, what you're presenting. And there are uniforms. People expect certain people to be dressed a certain way. So it's going to be an interesting conversation on Wednesday to see what people think about the new trend. There is a new trend in modest fashion. All of the big name designers even are getting on board. And it's interesting. It's not just covering up. It's just about the choices we make and how we present ourselves. So that is my current interest. And you know, as an artist, we all can be so creative, and sometimes we have to focus, and that becomes difficult. So I'm doing clothing, and I'm working on dolls, and working on presentations involving how to be fly and modest at the same time.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I can't say enough about your designs. They're absolutely earth-shaking and wonderfully on time. And look forward to hearing all that you have to say on okay. Karyna, where are you? There you are. Karyna Swing is joining us from New Mexico. And we can tell that by the color of the wall behind her, which is just exciting. So Karyna is a marimba musician. Am I saying that right? And recycled and repurposed materials artist. The floor is yours.
Okay, hi, everybody. I just want to say thank you so much, Lisa, for inviting me to this wonderful event. And thank you all. I feel such a thrill in my heart to be with such creative people. I'm just kind of a little bit flustered and honored all at the same time. So my name is Karyna Swing, and I am, I would say I'm an artist of 3 types. And actually, I want to say 4 types. The first one I'll give some little tiny bit of attention to is I, for about 30 years-ish, I was a lighting designer for the theater, the dance, and rock and roll. I studied that at university when I was much younger, and I retired from it not too long ago when I just got way too tired. Everybody thinks it's quite glamorous, but it's actually a heck of a lot of hard work of lifting and loading and all kinds of things, but it's quite exciting too. So I learned how, in that respect, to paint with light. That's how I always thought of myself as a designer, which is a very curious and creative thing to do. And you have to know a lot of the technical stuff too, which was more problematic for me in the whole as it started to turning digital, and less so in the mechanical part of it. But that did keep me up many late nights. So that's one of my skills. And the next thing that I think I'll give some attention to, which is I'm also an artist as well, and mostly quite hidden artist. But I take anything that someone else is tossing or throwing away, or I find in the yard, in the fields, and I try to make something absolutely beautiful and strong and honorable out of it. And so I don't, maybe in a little while I'll show this. This is one of my pieces, and so is that one back there. And I have a special one that I'll wait to show for this, for the questions, because I just have to say a little bit about it. But one of the things that I did when my father passed away, and the same year that that happened, I had a horse of many years and an old dog of many years, and they all decided to go to heaven at the same time. And it was very hard for me. This was a while back. And so I was outside grieving, and I noticed I was just pounding things together. Pounding. And so I was starting to create these beautiful, mostly wood and metal. That's the thing I like to work with the best, and my hands. At that time, I was simply using hand tools. And one of my friends who was very worried about me, she came over, and she's the executive director at a gallery here in Santa Fe called El Museo Cultural. And she and I know each other through theater events. But anyway, Maria came out here and she said, "Oh my God, this stuff is just amazing. You have to show it." And for me, I was kind of stunned, because I was like, this is just grieving stuff. This is ugly. Sorry to be judging myself, but I did. I was like, it's dumb, it's ugly. But she believed in me, and she said, no, please show it at the gallery. And so I did. I courageously did. And I had about 20 some pieces, and I had a wonderful reception. People really liked it. And so that, I mean, I was an artist all my life, but that was my first kind of experience, which is, I don't know, maybe like, I want to say about 10 years back-ish or something. And now I just can't stop. Now I'm like, if I go to anybody's house and I'm like, see the wood pile out there, I'm like, you guys want to go outside? Anyway, I can say lots about that. The third thing that I want to talk about is that I am also a marimba musician. And I have a marimba band called Polyphony Marimba, and I'm just tickled pink about this band. I love marimba music. I study it, I teach it, I perform it, and my band is actually going on tour, which is how Lisa and I became acquainted with each other. Our band played at her hosting in your beautiful community. And so we became friends, and she's just incredible. Lisa, thank you for everything that you've ever done for the band. Seriously. So anyway, hopefully you all at some point will be able to come and see us perform. I have booked over, well, I'm working on some, but about 50 gigs, 2 weeks going west in May and 6 weeks going east in the later part of the year, so I can share information on how people can find out where we'll be coming, and come out and see us. It's very, very beautiful music. Okay, and I don't want to keep going too long, but the fourth thing that I want to talk about that I consider my artistry also in my older years is the artistry of people and community. And I have to say that I'm normally quite reclusive and shy and don't like to be in big crowds, which is why I was a lighting person, because you're in the background. And but as I get older, I'm really recognizing, and especially after this last crazy thing that we all have endured and managed probably so amazingly more than what we think, is I want to do artistry with people and people gathering and encouraging and just community gathering, which is why the marimba band is so important to me, because music does bring people together. We can go out in an empty place and the music carries so beautifully. These are acoustic instruments that pretty soon there's a crowd of people just in delight and love. And also, my heart goes out to these Zoom situations and the other media where people can join with each other, just like that we're doing here in this venue. I learn so much by hearing what other people's stories are and their voices and their vantages and their intuitions. It's so invaluable to me. I mean, valuable, sorry, not invaluable. Valuable. Sorry about that. I'm not, obviously not the best wordsmith. However, I wanted to acknowledge that fourth thing that is kind of new to me, because I was introvert and reclusive, is the idea of just, I want to learn more about how to, really encourage and help further along community gathering. So gosh, that was a lot to be said. And I think I'm hoping I'm at 5 minutes.
You did. You stayed within it, I think, but we're all good. And one of the things that am I on mute or no? No. Okay. Thank you, because the technology is still a little daunting on occasion. One of the things that you should all know and certainly recognize is what women coming together can do and what women artists do. And certainly all artists, there's no question that all artists do this in one way or another. But I think I'm a little partial that women especially do this, and that is to embrace other artists and up and coming young people and to help them find their gifts and to motivate them to express themselves. The panel that's here today is an example of women who contribute in more than one way. Yes, they're artists. Yes, we are artists, but that doesn't stop us from sharing what we do and from sharing with up and coming artists how they can project who they are and establish themselves in this field. It's so important, and it is so much a part of what we do and who we are. And that I can't say enough about that. We're going to explore some questions now. And the first one is, how does creativity play a role in what you're doing as an art or as an individual? And let's talk about that a bit. I like to think that as women, those of us who are mothers definitely understand creativity. Before we ever realized there was an art to what we were doing, or an art aside from raising children or doing other things with community and family, we were already exemplifying what creativity is. Because if you can manage a budget, hold down a job, and still be involved with family, trust me, that's creative. So go forward from here and give us your own individual take on this. Sharon, can I call on you to start this ball rolling?
Okay. Creativity. And I think your point about creating a family is a great place, because I think the greatest creations I've ever made are my 2 children. And I didn't do it by myself, and I certainly didn't, and because of the way I was raised, creating community has always been very important to me. So creativity is always about extension to community. And I love what Karyna said, that the idea of our being able to get together online has become a major issue with me. The idea, as a matter of fact, I do everything virtual. I'm not out and about. I've done performance, and I've done galleries. I've done art, wearable art. I mean, I've done all those things, and they've been very, very public. So I have that extroverted training of being out in public. I'm not there now. I'm now very introspective, very into looking at what's happening in the world, and looking at how can we make community better. And so virtual, I know that the way many people got into it was because of COVID, but I've been doing filmmaking and virtual and I've been doing that for years. And so, as I don't know, a few people I know, when COVID did hit, I was like, wow, now that means virtual is going to really explode, and we're going to have this community. We can go anywhere. And the backlash was crazy for me. And so I have made it a real soapbox thing, an advocate for virtual community building. And I do that. I travel around the world. I can be in 3 different continents in one day. And so my creativity expands beyond just making things, but making things that motivate others. And I share with, I have a free drawing clinic that I do once a month online, third Thursday a month. And I don't know who's coming, and I don't know what we're going to do as such, but it's a wonderful opportunity, and something always comes out of it very satisfying for everyone. And so I find that the idea of creating, and I do a lot, the pieces that you see on the back of my this is my technology studio. My making studio is in my lower level of my home, but the pieces that you see there represent some of the work that I do based on people, and you see my man wall. Okay, I'm a woman, and I've always said that I'm a man's woman, if you understand. I that whole relationship of men who love women and women who love men is a beautiful thing, and it inspires me. And so I have my man wall of all the great men who have all passed, really, who have all but my grandson. And so the whole creativity process, and I think a lot of African and African-American aesthetics is based on our relationship as community and as in people. I have a lot of people in my work. And even when I'm doing things, it's always about people. And so I didn't mention that my other name, I have lots of personas. And so there's Techno Granny, who's all with the virtual, but I'm also Auntie Africa. And Auntie Africa has taken on such a life of her own until I'm trying to catch up with that. And that has a lot to do with music. I make music on computer. That whole CD that I did, Auntie Africa, was done on the computer, all the music and all the voices of mine. So creativity, and I've often said this as a university professor and in teaching, my first job was at the DC Recreation Department way back in the day when I was at George Washington University studying. And I've always said that, creativity is something that it becomes really important for you to love people, love yourself, love who you are, love your culture, and then you can explore others. So that's basically what it means to me. I did want to ask you, though, Elaine, a question. I know that you're supposed to be interviewing, but I want to ask you a question because I know that you're a Washington. Well, you said you're from Philly, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so
well, I was born in Philly, raised in St. Louis, and this is home, and this is where I love.
Okay, because I wanted to know, because when you said dance, dance is a part of your life.
Right.
And I know that, we're around the same generation. And so it's like, what was the name of the dance school that you said was that influenced your?
It was the first African-American dancing school west of the Mississippi in St. Louis, and it was Mildred P. Franklin School of Dance.
Okay.
And that was my grandmother. And when she passed, my aunt, Mildred Lorraine Franklin, took it over and continued with the work, and they taught ballet, tap, and toe. So they did they did both, and jazz as well. So they did a little bit of everything, and it was an exciting time.
Well, it's interesting because when you said that, because I grew up here in DC, and the same thing that you described is Northeast Academy of Dance with Bernice Hammond Jackson here. And I think every community, I'm an anthropologist too, so I go over, I'm always collecting stuff. And every Black community had that kind of dance school that was like a finishing school, a charm school. You learn how to be in the world. And so I was excited to hear that, because that's another woman. I did a piece, I wrote a paper for the Association for the Study of African Life and History. And I used this, I've been doing a series of paintings called Women Who, and this one was Women Who Swallow the Ocean. And it really is about women who prepare the next generation to move out into the world.
Exactly.
So, so I think that answers that question.
Happy to be of service to you. Okay, let me also mention one other thing. I think that for me, I just have to say that I have 5 children, 18 grandchildren, and I think it's now 12 great-grandchildren. So I'm a firm believer that we do what we do to pass on to the next generation and the generation after that. And I can assure you that several of those descendants of mine are artists, and I'm very happy to say that. It's just a very exciting. In fact, I just finished with one of my grandsons who is an abstract artist in St. Louis, and we worked on submitting a proposal for him last night, which did hit the deadline, which was today. So we're moving right along, and it's so exciting watching the generations that come after us, and what we can do to instill in them what they need to be able to accomplish whatever their goals are, whether their art is an art form we recognize as art, or whether their art is in an area that we don't necessarily associate with art, but there is always an art to everything. So, and I will shut up now and go on to the next. So Shruthi, are you ready with your creativity and how you see that?
Yeah. So there are multiple ways I, find creativity in my life. One is working for a nonprofit, using limited resources to create an experience for my patrons I take pride in that creativity aspect of it, because it does take some reimagining resources, right? And sometimes it's just not the money, it's just the way you make it happen for people. So that's definitely creativity. But also, I think in some ways it's also how we create our, when they talk about cognitive behavioral, therapy and things like that, where you reframe your day, your mind, your purpose to life. I feel that going, like when you were saying, Sharon, when you said you're introspective, I feel like I every so often keep checking in, and I'm like, where is my core? What am I doing? and how do I recalibrate myself creatively and not be driven by some other stress, but it's where I'm creatively finding creative outlets and finding joy in doing what I'm doing. And I think, I mean, many of you here have children, grandchildren. I'm raising 2 teenagers right now, and it is the throes of parenting. I think this is the most tested I have been as a parent, and how I can be creative while also being supportive to myself and them. That's where I'm creating right now. Because I think finding that sweet spot where I'm still being supportive to them, but at the same time, I just can't take on the burden of this emotional rearing of sorts, right? And so, yeah, and I think for me, the pandemic was, it was a forced pause, like it was for many people, but that was the first time ever in my life I had stopped, because I was a kid, I was 21, I was married, I had children, then I was working, busy, and suddenly I was just like, wait, no one needs me anywhere. My kids are home, everyone's home, no one really needs me. What do I need? And finding that space and creating that space for myself, now I keep like, I want to go back. How do I come back to that center? And so the other thing, like you were saying that you become virtual and things like that, for me post-pandemic is like, how do I find something artistic or creative to be involved in somehow, at least a couple times a week? Because I was joking to one of my neighbors. I said, sitting on the couch in suburbia and watching Netflix is the slow death of my soul. So, I mean, not to say there's not creative stuff on TV, but I just find I need that fourth wall broken where I'm in it, where I'm participating in some way. And the most joy I get is out of dancing. So nowadays, I mean, I've always danced, but I now just dance for fun and I'm not performing. So I think that gives me a lot of joy. And we create little dance reels at every party I'm at now, wherever I'm with people. I'm like, come, 30 seconds, let's do this together, dance.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's so interesting, all the different ways that we as artists do what we do and are creative. Sehar?
I'm listening to everyone talk about how they balance, and I don't know that I will ever reach a balanced point, but I find a lot of creative energy in kind of staying true to myself in terms of what I want to create, but being able to move, with the flow of what is happening, to a certain extent. I'm a child of being in between, not having the internet and having the internet. My mother used to say to me, I don't understand why there's no film, because she was an artist, and she used to do photography as part of her job. And she couldn't understand. I said, Mom, don't worry about why there isn't any film. Just understand that this new thing works and just use it. So learning how to just do marketing, a little bit of marketing on the internet has been a creative process that is just starting to reach me, why it's important and how it's important. And Shruthi, what you're doing is with the Only Theater is very important. My daughter is an actress, and she does the community outreach for a theater that she helped found in San Francisco. And bringing people in is very important. So that should heavily satisfy you, because a lot of young people haven't haven't been to the theater. They haven't seen live fashion shows. They haven't seen a lot of live creativity. So we're at a stage where it's important that that we have the internet so that everybody all over the world can see a lot of different things that they wouldn't ordinarily have access to. But then it's also important that we maintain that creative process, that natural process that needs to always remain. So, mentoring some kids and teaching kids and helping to get kids to understand that, the chicken nuggets come from a chicken, so they don't understand that when I'm block printing, the transition from me working with my hands, there's a big transition to digital art. And there's a big, controversy about it now. I really like how I look digitally, by the way. So, while there's, I have a question about it, at the same time, it all has its positive parts. So there's a lot going on in the creative processes in trying to balance those things, trying to figure out how we can maintain all of our natural processes. And that includes, still growing our own food and recycling and not destroying the earth, while at the same time, moving ahead with technology. I am only an individual person doing my individual thing to at least use all that I have. I have so many boxes of fabric. And so, part of my process is, okay, I've got this coming up and I need this merchandise. How, what do I have that I can use so that I don't just constantly buy fabric, which is, an addiction. So to try and keep control of that and learning not to leave such a large footprint. Fashion is the industry that leaves an awful lot of trash. As a matter of fact, it's one of the largest waste makers. And I don't want to be a part of that waste making. So I'm learning how to be creative within certain parameters and understanding that I can probably be just fine living off of, maybe 1 million. I don't need 8 billion, but 1 million would be nice. But I'd be fine just being comfortable and, being able to have my creativity without having to have another job. I have never worked long-term for anyone but myself. And it's something that ain't for sissies. That's for sure. So I'll leave it there.
There's no question about that. One of the things that's interesting about this collection of artists is that we scan several ages with this panel, and yet all of us have had to wear lots of hats to be able to get through any given day as an artist and all the other hats that we wear. So we have to do both the art part, which we love, and then the technical part, which we are sometimes lost in, but we are those who are able to adjust and adapt, and that in itself is creative. Karyna, where is your creativity other than, and by the way, that idea of being in the background doing the lighting, trust me, that's art in itself. So, own it and go on.
Yeah. Wow, this is amazing. I love everything that everybody's talking about. And I do commend all the mommies and the poppies who are doing the true creation of bringing up children. I don't have any of my own. I do have 2 that I somewhat feel responsible for because my husband has 2 beautiful young people from a previous marriage, one of which will be touring with us. And just that last thing that was said, let's affirm that we're all going to manifest huge amounts of prosperity for all of us and our students so that we can always just forever make art of whatever our skills and talents are. I think for me, the idea of creativity that's coming into play during the last wackiness and very strongly right now is twofold: safety versus the super challenges. And so some part of me feels like in order to be creative, because I just can't help it. I mean, I really can't. Even when I do my plate and I'm eating, I'm like, oh, well, lettuce goes there. And but how do I be creative when I feel safe? Or how do I be creative when a lot of the challenges are coming? And I'm sure we all probably have that, where it's like, sometimes it's like, yay, everything's delightful and this is great. And then whomp, like, how am I going to manage this? How am I going to manage that? And what does that do to the creative side of us and me? Like, I feel like, again, I do feel like there's a part of me that's blessed. I can't help but create. And I've got all kinds of different things in process and progress. And I have a really hard time finishing things. So that's a flaw. I have to push myself to finish things. But I notice that it's sometimes when I feel very safe and very comfortable that a certain kind of creativity comes about, and I can go for hours and into the evening. I've even had characters in my lives that are like at nighttime, they're like, you can't see anything out there, come inside, because it's dark, but my eyes have adjusted and I'm still doing something. And then there's other parts, lately, I will be honest with you, this week in particular, huge, stunning challenges where I'm just like, I don't even know how to navigate. And I have found myself trying to tend to things and noticing that I'm not doing the creativity. Or if I am, it's got an interesting manner to it. And I think that I was reflecting when you all were talking about being parents and having children, and surely those are the biggest challenges of all, and the probably the most sacred too. Wow, honor to all of you that are in that position. But I think that's what I would want to speak to about creativity, I guess, is like the parameters of your environment that you're in, whether it's for yourself or are you in a teaching environment? Do you feel safe? Does the challenges of the family and job and money and commitments and stuff, do they overwhelm or do they inform? So I don't know that I have too much more to say to that, but those, I think, as far as creativity goes, those are coming in to me very strong, because a side of me wants to say, I just want to feel safe. I can create when I'm safe. And yet, forget it. Safety maybe lasts a day or two, if I'm lucky, 3. It just doesn't. Like the gunas got us going in this crazy, ocean of change. And so yeah, like, well, how are we informed creatively by whether we feel safe or whether we are challenged, and how do we tackle it? I guess that's what I like to say about concerning creativity.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Karyna. I think that one of the quotes that I believe is just profound and applicable all across the board is the African quote that says, it takes a village to raise a child. It isn't just children from our wombs. It is the community around us, those who are learning from you, learning from us. That is the community. That is the village, or that is, these are the children. It doesn't matter whether they're 10 or 90. They are the children of the art, and they require of us attention. So you've already said that you are teaching and working with people of all ages. They're your children. So give it up, acknowledge that you have them, and just keep going. That's one. And two, it is a village. And so we are all here to hold up each other when any one of us is facing challenges that we're not comfortable with, and or that we need help with. And so there is that. And I'm sure that we will address some of these issues. Please save your questions to later on. I just get to say something because I get to be the spokesperson at this moment, but that's taking a liberty. I'm going to shut up now. Our next question is about identity, and how is your identity expressed within your work, or within you? How is your identity expressed? How do you acknowledge it? Or do you feel that you acknowledge it? Sharon, I'm right back to you.
Okay. Well, and it's really quite timely that I'm seeing a signal here. It's quite timely that what Karyna has said and how I see myself is and I'm going to say it's very short. It's, I guess some people might call it a mantra, but I've taught it to people, thousands of people around the world. And it's a way of every person identifying who they are. And so it goes like this. Tonight, I am me, free, proud, beautiful, Black, and a child of God. I am proud when I sing. I am me when I talk. I am free when I dance. I am beautiful when I walk. Forever, ahora, I am me, free, proud, beautiful, Black, and a child of God. And I've said this but when I share it with other people, I want them to say who they are. And it sounds wonderful with everyone. I wish we could open up, and I have another group that we actually do things online, but it's just beautiful to hear all these voices say who they are. And then sometimes I say, now believe it, okay? And so it's really growing up in my family of people who made things. I have always had a sense of who I was, and because of growing up in a community that reinforced that, and that's what was so beautiful, is that growing up in Eastland Gardens in Washington, D.C., which I called Lilliputian, it really was a very special place to grow up, because it was a community that was empowered. It wasn't like, I didn't know that there was a problem in this country until I went away to college. I wanted to be a fashion designer, Sehar, and I wanted to make wonderful clothes. And I was just looking forward to going to New York City and Fashion Institute of Technology. And my family said, you're going to West Virginia. So I spent 2 agonizing years in West Virginia State College, but I loved it because I became an AKA, and all those things kind of embraced who I am. But in 2 weeks, I was in jail because of protesting, because I had never heard, I didn't know people had issues like they have, that we could go to a skating rink because of our color. And I thought that was the most absurd thing. And so that changed my vision of what was wrong with other people. It didn't change my vision of what was wrong with me. I was like, what's wrong with these people? And that's pretty much been my attitude, that folks have issues. Now, I spend a lot of time finding out what their issues are. I don't now because I'm focusing on my art. But I think it's really important that a child grows up knowing who they are. I knew I was Sharon Lee Minor, and I love when they say, ask you for your first name. I put my first name, Sharon Lee Minor. And, because that identity, even when they tried to call me Little Francis, my mom's name is Francis. Oh, here comes Little Francis. And I was 4 years old, and I said, I am not Little Francis, I am Sharon Lee Minor. So, it's that kind of thing that I'm hoping that I instill in my 5 grandchildren, that sense of home framework, so that when they go out into the world, they are not being told stuff that they already know who they are. And we're working on that diligently. So that's what I think, that's what my identity stems from.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And that the richness of the mantra that you used is one that we should share. And if you can do that, that would be wonderful, because I think that's a very powerful mantra.
It's on the CD. I've done 2 CDs, and one is called Selah.
Okay.
It's called Meditation. And you can go online, Google it online, and that's a whole nother issue, because I've never received royalties from any of my work. You're talking about marketing or online. That's a whole nother discussion. And but you can go on Auntie Africa music station. Auntie Africa's everywhere now. And you can go and you can ask for meditation. If you Google in meditation, you should be able to get to sample it.
Okay, thank you. Shruthi, you're up. And how do you feel about identity within your artwork? Is it you that we see within what you do, even in your production and organizing? And by the way, without an audience, artists would not survive. So you need both sides of that coin. We have to have the artists, and we have to have the appreciators, the collection of those who either collect the art, attend the art, and appreciate it in some way. So
actually in Indian classical dance, and from the treatise called the Natya Shastra, there is this word that's called rasa anubhava, which means that when art is being created and there is an audience receiving the art, together you resonate in this rasa, or this energy that's created, and it's the experience of that. So it's the two souls at that moment, not to be cliche, but I mean, or trivialize that, but it is when you both are vibrating at that same frequency, you create this rasa anubhava. And it is like, whether it's an artwork, your visual artwork, or you're being in this room, when you're experiencing it together. And I think for me, that togetherness is what makes me happy all the time. And it's, be it friends, be it, family, whatever, it's bringing that people together is what I feel like I am reaching my potential of whatever it is for that moment. And identity wise, I think definitely everything I do will be steeped in this really strong conviction of who I am, where I came from. And I'm a big believer of our history informs our future. And that's where our roots is where our branches grow and flowers go, seeds go, it spreads, but then that root is what keeps nourishing us to be who we are. And I mean, it straight comes down from my 2 I mean, our families, both my grandmothers were amazing women, really strong in their convictions. They knew who they were. I mean, yes, there's patriarchy and stuff, but that's different. But in our two households, our grandmothers were the ones who kind of, spoke to the family, and things. I kind of channel them every day, and I pick one based on the day and what I need to pick from. And my mother, another like amazing woman who but then she's also ridden with like self-doubt and all the time, and we're now like, no, you're cool, you can do this, you should do this, things like that. So I think we've come to the point where now we're supporting her, my sister and I. And then my sister, another one, when you were talking about education and village and stuff, she's been running this dance school for 29 years. And her students have children now, and it's amazing to see the family and the legacy she's building with each of these kids she's teaching, because she's not just teaching art, she's also teaching them life lessons, helping them find their identity, especially because when these Indian American kids come to learn Indian dance, they're not just learning dance for the sake of art, but also for culture, for finding their like sisterhood among people who look like them. And because they're populating this world where the majority doesn't look like them, so this is where they come for that. And like Deepti becomes their like second mom. And and then I kind of bask in that, because I show up there every so often, and I get to be like Shruthi auntie for that time I'm there, and enjoy that. And so yeah, I mean, there's so many of these identities, or like I wouldn't say identities. I think different parts of me come out in different spaces I populate. But I think this South Asian, I mean, like, I'm not a practicing Hindu, but I follow the philosophy of the Sanatana Dharma. I mean, and not that I'm not a practicing Hindu. I don't follow like rituals, but I'm at core, I am that. So it comes out in the things I do. And my grandmother always would say, you just give for the sake of giving, and it'll come back some other way. And that's the circle of life. And that is what is my motivation when I do things. And talking about, when you were talking about Sharon, about identity, telling your grandchildren and stuff, it's like, what is it you want to perpetuate, and what of the stuff you want to erase from things that you don't want your children, you want to remove some of that baggage for each generation and help them take it forward. Because every day they're going to school as Isha Iyengar, Sunaina Iyengar, my nieces are out there doing their things, and we're constantly here saying, yes, you got this, you can do this, be who you are, stand tall in your shoes. You don't have to be anyone else. And I think that's a lesson I still get from my family, and having that support, I think, is the best thing.
I can assure you that it is obvious that you are the granddaughter of your grandmothers. It is obvious that you carry their energy and their spirit in you, and that you project that to those around you. And that's the exciting thing. You said it all.
Thank you, Elaine.
Karyna, where are you?
Here I am.
And your identity, or you see identity in your work how?
Yeah, that's a great question and a great consideration. I absolutely see myself in my artwork. I think that I exude myself in my art pieces. What I thought about when I think of identity and the art pieces was courage. I feel